Hey, you guys, we're going to start in just a few minutes. How many of you are already here with us? So far, I see no friends, except with my friend Robert here. Robert, say hello.
Hello, everybody.
There we go. So we'll wait. Okay. We have one person joining us. Awesome. Give me a thumbs up for being the first person. Should we give a prize to the first person?
I think the first person's me.
The first person's right. There's the second person. You know, should we give the first person that joined us other than Robert a prize? So do we know who that is? Should they can put in the comment section. Hey, if you're joined us right now, put your name in the comment section and we'll give you a prize, and it's going to be big or not, right? We got a thumbs up. All right, we got 3. All right, welcome all those joining us. We're going to get started in just a little bit. Maybe as we're waiting, you guys write in a comment where you're going on vacation this summer. Hey, Krista, how are you, friend? Yeah, maybe go in the comments and let me know where you guys are going on vacation this year. Or where you're not, or where do you want to go on vacation, maybe the better thing. Yeah, I've kind of got vacation on my mind here because we're working on a podcast right now as we're simultaneously working on this webinar about how to have a great vacation. You guys are staying here. You guys are staying home. Where you going on vacation? We're going to start in just a few minutes. Do you think a lot of people sign up and then watch the video later, Robert? Wait, let's say hi again, Robert.
Hello.
There's Robert.
Hey.
So no vacations? Nobody's going on vacation. No one wants to put in the comment section where you're going on vacation? No? All right.
That's a good question.
Give me a thumbs up. Give me a little thumbs up if you are going on vacation. How about that? You know, the little bouncing thumbs ups. Let's see what happens there. We'll practice that skill. We got one, number 8. All right. We're getting close to start. We're going to give everybody a few more minutes. Now we're going to do a would you rather. Would you rather have more finances to help you do ministry or more people power to do ministry? Well, I'm already went to Breckenridge. Oh, cool. I'm going camping, but I can hardly call that a vacation. No kidding, man. Camping's just something I do because I love my kids. But I'm trying to phase them out. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The kids are camping.
Oh, Robert just said, are you trying to phase out? The kids are camping. Both. Both. We're going to do that. And Paul says he would much rather have leaders. What about you guys? More finances to do what you're doing or more leaders? Finances or leaders? Okay, here's another would you rather. Would you rather vacation in the mountains or on the beach? The mountains or the beach? Yeah, I'm beach for sure. Robert, what are you? Mountains or beach? Beach. Yeah. Oh, we got some beach. Here we go. We got people want more people. No one's saying more. Everybody's saying more leaders. Tough would rather try first finances and people. That is, Krista is not going to settle. All right, so beach, leaders and beach, mountains, beach, mountains, says Paul. David said he'd rather go to the beach. Karen says the beach. Yes, a warm beach. We have cold beaches in Washington. Yeah. I even lived in Southern California for a while, and the water was cold. It was cold. It's beautiful, though. And the sand you could actually wipe off of you. Unlike Gulf Coast sand that stays with you for 6-8 weeks. You're finding sand for forever. Well, Robert, it is 1:02. I'm going to ask one more would you rather.
Do it.
And then we're going to dive into this thing. Okay. Would you rather have, look at the smiley faces. Sorry, I am ADD. You guys, some of you know this already. ADHD, so at least I get the hyper part. and now there's little flowers and thumbs floating across the screen. So I'm going to try really hard to stay focused. Okay, one more would you rather and we'll dive in. Would you rather, what's a good would you rather, Robert? Would you rather be able to go back in time for 5 years from now, 5 years back, or would you rather go forward in time 5 years from now? Back up 5 years before now, or fast forward 5 years ahead of now. What do you guys pick? And then we'll dive in. I would pick, and we're not staying there. We're just going to look. Yeah, I'm probably going to go back because, I think there's maybe a reason God doesn't show us what's in front of us. I think it may be too scary. We got to back up. Yeah, I need to do some reverse parenting too on that. Everybody's saying go back it up. Forward. Lowe says forward. Back up 5 years, only long enough to look and see what I could do different. Yeah, no kidding. That's a good one. Future. Krista says back up 5 years. I got a lot of choices I need to rectify. Oh no, I don't want to do either. Forward 5 years would be better. I don't want to be older. 5 years ahead, Paul says back. Don't want to run into the future by knowing about it. Don't want to ruin the future by knowing about it. Yeah, that's a good call. Paul, that's a good call. All right. Well, we're going to dive in. Thank you for joining us for the third Married People webinar. We are so glad that you guys decided to do this. We've gotten a lot of great responses back from leaders saying, keep doing it. We want you to keep doing it, but we try to dive a little deeper, maybe get more specific and bring some new learnings and different things. And the other thing I think, when we just had Orange Conference, give me a thumbs up if you were at Orange Conference this year. We just had Orange Conference, and the thing I love about it is it gives us a chance to get together, because when it comes to marriage ministry, one thing that I see very consistently is people that work in the marriage ministry space, not all of them, but a lot of them, is they feel isolated, because marriage ministry is a different rhythm than children's ministry or student ministry. You know, Sunday's coming, right? And even adult ministry, Sunday's coming. But when it comes to marriage ministry, oftentimes it can live kind of off by itself a little bit, and people feel kind of isolated. And, you know, and I can even feel that sometimes at Orange, because everybody's focusing on kids, and we've got our department over here that's focusing on married adults. And so that can become a little bit challenged. So we wanted to create a space at Orange Conference and also online with Married People leaders on the Facebook page, where it's kind of like the clubhouse for people that care about marriage ministry. And, you know, it feels like it's something that's wanting to happen, because, Robert, how many people do we have now on our leaders page?
Over 1,700.
1,700. And I got to tell you, I didn't know it, you know, a few years back, I didn't know if there were 1,700 people in the country who were passionate about marriage ministry. So that's been really fun to watch that group grow really fast. And what it says to us is we need a community. We need a place where we can talk and learn. And one of the greatest joys of getting to do what I do is when we go on the Facebook page and we see you guys teaching each other and asking each other questions. And so it just creates this community that we're really excited about. And we want to explore more and more ways on how to do that. But the webinar is one way that we do want to do that we want to continue to get together, and here's what we're learning, and here's what we're thinking. And one of the things I've gotten from you guys, now that this is webinar number 3, you said, I want you to dive a little bit deeper. I want you to bring some different things to the table. And so one of the things I want to do today, we're going to dive in. I want to start with, I think it's super healthy, at least a couple of times a year, for us to pause and say, why are we doing marriage ministry? What's the big deal anyway? Instead of just, you know, pushing through, going, why are we doing this? What is the reason behind? And is it important? Because a lot of times, a lot of us work in marriage ministry space, you may be getting asked by senior pastor or other leadership that says, you know, do we need to do this? We're doing so many other things. Is this really the best way to do this? Is the church really the best place to help marriages? So I want to start there. I want to start with a couple stats that are sad, that break my heart, but I think it's so important for us to pause and go, wow, what we're doing is really important. I read a stat the other day from a sociologist, Paul Amato and Jacob Childen. It says kids whose grandparents have divorced have weaker ties to their parents, don't go as far in school, and don't get along well with their parents. And I thought about that for a reason. The reason I bring this up is when you think about marriage, there's a tremendous ripple effect that goes way beyond that one couple. We've got a couple couples that in our life and in our family who've divorced. And I told Nancy recently, I said, I wonder sometimes if the one that's impacted by it the least is the married couple themselves. Because you see, sometimes they're like, hey, I am more happily married. Hey, I'm with someone more like me, or someone I can get along well. Well, that's great for you, but we're watching what it's happening to your parents and to your children and to nieces and nephews. When you think about the ripple effect that even grandparents divorce go down a generation, it says one more time, one more way why what we're doing is so important. And then I read this one and I thought, wow, we're not saying this a lot. In fact, we gave this stat at Orange Conference, and we had a lot of debate whether even to use it because it's so heavy. The Journal of the Scientific Study of Religion says that 60% of children whose parents have divorced walk away from their faith. 60% of children whose parents have divorced walk away from their faith. We had one leader that works at Orange, and she said, I'm not sure you should say this. She goes, because if there's a single mom in the room, she may run out the back door. And here's the thing. I only say this thing because I think if we're going to realize the vastness and the greatness of God's redemption, we have to realize the situation that marriages are in. And we have to realize how important marriage is to children and their faith. So if you're a church leader that cares passionately about kids and passionately about their faith, then there's nothing more we can pour into any more important to them than their parents' marriage. And here's the great news. Those are really tough stats, but here's the great news. That marriage is not a stat. Marriage is a story. In fact, even sociologists are very clear to say this has nothing to do with individual marriages, as they're given the stats, because individual marriages are impacted by how people handle those marriages. And when I thought about that, I smiled because I thought God gives us a way to handle marriage in a very, very different way than the world. So when we start telling stories, what are the marriages in your church? What story are they telling? And how do you as a church leader help those stories to be great? Because when we think and we pause and we take it back to the very basics, marriage is supposed to reflect the relationship between Christ and the church. In other words, marriage is supposed to look so great that it draws people to your church and it draws people to Christ. So again, just a little reminder for us of why we're doing what we're doing. And I know, again, those are tough stats, but it just shows how important what we're doing really is. Now I want to share some other stats with you that are absolutely fascinating. When you're asking the question, does marriage ministry really count? Is it really important? A couple of years ago, a group of CEOs got together, major corporations across the country. They got together and they said, what if we take all the money that we donate to charity each year or to causes and we pooled it together? Could we do more together than we could apart? To use Orange language, if we were one voice, would we be louder? And the answer was yes. And then they took a research team and wanted to answer this question. They said, is there any place where we can invest this money that will impact our bottom line? In other words, yeah, we want to give it to a charity, but is there a charity we could give it to, a cause we could give it to that would make us make more money? And they said, hey, if we make more money, we can give away more money. So everybody wins. This research team came back, and what they came back with was absolutely fascinating. They said, if you really want to change, if you really want to change the economic climate to the point where people are spending more money in your business, they said, you got to help marriages. And then they came back with something crazy. They said, and the best way that you help marriages and that marriages can be changed in your city is by helping churches to help marriages. In other words, they believed the church was the place to help marriages. And so, these corporations, that they're not questioning the results. They're like, okay, here's the problem. Here's the charity, and here's how we fix it. So something crazy happened. They take this money and they go out to looking for organizations that are helping churches help marriages. And I think there's 7 or 8 of organizations that were doing it. Married people were a part of that. And they said, we want to get behind you financially, and we want to help you initially in 3 cities: Phoenix, Arizona, Dayton, Ohio, and Jacksonville, Florida. And we're like, why those 3 cities? They said, through our research, we have found that if we can change marriages in those cities, then the demographics are such that you'll be able to apply what you've learned to other areas of the country. Because if you can get it right there, move the needle there on marriages, then this thing could go across the United States. So they just said to us, because they're business people, they're not church people, they said, go. Well, let me just be completely transparent with you. It was the clunkiest system you've ever seen, because there was no system. Like, they didn't say to our organization, hey, you focus on this part of Dayton and this part of Jacksonville, and this organization is going to do this part. So what happened was, all these big organizations, or ish organization, we go into the same cities. A lot of us going after the same churches, because we all have the same logic. If we can hit these bigger churches, they have influence on other churches, and it'll trip down. What's the word?
Trickle down.
Trickle down. Oh, we don't want to go there. It will spread influential churches. So these churches were getting all of these calls and all this. It felt like pretty aggressive people saying, we want to help you. We want to help you help your churches in your community. But at the risk of sounding hyper spiritual, God being God does something crazy. He uses this anyway. So we go to these churches, and here's what happened. In Jacksonville, this is the result after a year at the end of 2016. We don't have results from Phoenix, but we have it from Dayton, Ohio, that their divorce rate dropped by 9%. The rest of the state had dropped by 1%, Dayton 9%. So that's a huge number. But watch this. This was something amazing happened in Jacksonville, Florida, and we're still trying to wrap our brains around what exactly it was. By the end of 2016, the divorce rate in Duval County, which is where Jacksonville, the city of Jacksonville is, it dropped by 17%. By the end of 2017, it dropped by 25%, where the rest of the counties in Florida were dropping between 1% and 2%. So something happened when churches said, okay, we're going to do this thing. And so the other part of this thing was, they said, hey, we're going to help finance those people to have those churches to have marriage ministries. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to use our finances and our data to market to people in the city, to get people that don't go to your church to come to your church based on the fact that you're doing something for marriage. So the collision of churches saying, okay, we're going to use these strategies that these other companies have helped us to have. Married People is one of those. And we're going to allow you to market for us to see if we can make a difference. And some amazing things happen. And again, the divorce rate drops significantly, especially in Jacksonville, Florida, by 25%. And before I give you some examples on what those churches did, I want to show you how this project lined up with another project. In 2004, the government did, it's called the U.S. Marriage Project, where they spent $200 million. This was 2004. It's a governmental program. They said, we're going to reach out to people that are helping marriages, and we're going to finance it there. The problem was they really couldn't reach out a huge percentage to church because, separation of church and state. So they pulled kind of the church out of the equation, and they had little to no impact for this. When the church got involved, and this is the difference between those two initiatives, is when the church got involved, it made all the difference in the world. And let me tell you, when I mentioned the part about the data, and this is what they've been communicating to us, this is what this organization said, you have to get it as an organization, and churches have to understand as an organization that this thing, the computer and your phone, is changing everything, because what it's doing is collecting information about us. Every time we're on an app, every time we order something from Amazon, every time we tweet, every time we do Snapchat, any of those things we're doing, there is a collection of information about us. And here's a couple examples. In the next 60 seconds, there will be $750,000 spent on Amazon. There will be 16 million texts sent. There will be 156 million emails sent. There'll be 4.1 million views on YouTube, 3.5 million searches on Google and 3.5 million logins on Facebook. 420,000 tweets. 100,000 of those are going to be John Acuff. And 1.8 million snaps on Snapchat. Here's why this is important. This data is not just taking numbers. It's talking about behavior. In fact, if we're just looking at the Facebook component of this, studies show that 10 likes on Facebook lets you know Facebook knows more about you than your coworkers after 10 likes. After 70 likes, Facebook knows more about you than your friends. After 150 likes, they know more about you than your parents. After 300 likes, they know more about you than your spouse. And after 300 plus likes, they know more about you than you know about yourself. So it's this collection of data. It's called big data, or data. A lot of you guys, you've probably heard that term, big data or big data. If you hadn't, I'm just going to, in a way of review, or for some of you the first time, here's what it's defined at. And by the way, all these notes, I meant to tell you earlier, all these notes we're going to make available immediately following this thing. So if you're missing some of the notes, we'll give you everything on that. We'll give you a blog post on that. And we're also going to do a lot of Q&A at the end. So stick with me here. But big data is a noun, says extremely large data sets that are analyzed computationally to reveal patterns, trends, associations, especially relating to human behavior and interactions. In other words, it's so much data, and can't be processed by people. It's being processed through computers, and it's not just talking about the surface stuff. It's talking about human behavior and interaction. That's why it's knowing more about us. That's why Facebook says, I know more about you after 300 likes than you know about yourself. And you're going to tell, what in the world does this have to do with churches? Well, what it has to do with churches is when this organization and other churches started using big data, I'm going to say it data from now on, big data, is it data or data?
Either way.
I'm going to go with data. After using this, that's how they started making a huge imprint on this thing. And one of the reasons that they were so, I believe, became so successful for this is this organization actually robbed a guy from Arizona State University named Matt Engel. Now, Matt and his team were hired by Arizona State University to do three things. They wanted to increase the freshman class, they wanted to increase transfer students, and they wanted to decrease dropouts. And so he and his team used all the data of students in the area. They started learning behaviors of how, what they would do right before they were going to drop out, or what would make someone transfer. And they increased the freshman class by 16%, which in academic world is crazy. Watch this. They increased transfer students by 52%, and they had 14% decrease in dropouts. So what happened was in 2005, they had 63,000 students. By the end of 2017, they had 103,000 students, making Arizona State University the largest university in the country. So the minds behind that were pulled into this initiative, and they said, we want to use this for the church. Because the thing I love about Matt, he's become a dear friend of mine, and he is a brainiac, to say the very least. But he's also been a marriage pastor at a church. He's very passionate about Jesus. He's very passionate about marriage. And he believes more than anyone that marriage can really be strengthened. Marriages can stay together best through the local church. And he uses Nehemiah. And I'm just going to give you this verse really quick. It's from Nehemiah 1:1-4. It says, one of my brothers came from Judah with some other men, and I questioned them about the people who had survived the exile and about the city, Jerusalem. They said to me, the people who survived the exile are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of the city is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. He said, when I heard these things, I sat down and wept. And when I talked to Matt about this, he said, Ted, all this big data, all it is knowing the city, and it's knowing the church. It's knowing what's going on. And when we know more about those things, about our church and about our city, it can change everything. So using the data, using the advertisement of this, so these big churches And smaller churches did some amazing things. Here's an example from one church. They hosted a series on forgiveness in marriage, and here's why. They're in the middle of a series on Acts, and they bring back all the big data, and they said to them, here's what we're finding. There's a 24% of the people in your area are headed toward divorce. And the precision of this data is really, really scary. They said 24% of the couples in your area heading toward divorce. They stopped the series on Acts, and they started a series on marriage and forgiveness, and here's what happened. They had a 19% growth in attendance, and they have 25% of the attendees that were there did not attend church. Now, here's what you got to know. This organization spent $3,000 on digital advertising. I just need you to be upfront about that to go, how did they do that? Well, they spent a lot of money on digital advertising. And you're going, I don't have $3,000. Of course not. But the point is that became very, very effective. So whether that's $50 for your church, $100 for your church on that type of advertisement, all of a sudden it can really matter. Here's another example of a church. They hosted a date night comedy event. My wife and I are part of that. And they also spent some money on digital advertising. I don't have an exact number. And they had 450 new people to attend the event. 30% never attended that church before. When it was over, they had 120 married couples do the follow-up small group study. And here's the amazing thing. So their follow-up study was a study we did here at Orange and Married People called Your Best Us. Some of you give us thumbs up if you've gone through that series so far. But they had this great big event, and then they did the Your Best Us study. And so my wife and I went back and we did another event with them, and we got to meet some of the couples that had gone through the study. And after the event, I'm standing out in the lobby. And this guy walks up to me with his wife, and he said, I just got to tell you, he goes, when we started that study, we were done. He said, I was just so tired of all the chaos. And he goes, I was so tired of all the noise. He said, I'd be driving home from work, and I'm thinking, when I walk into the house, it's going to be loud. It's going to be chaotic. We're going to fight. And he goes, I got to the point where I'd do anything, including divorce, just to be away from all the noise. And he goes, so we did this study. It's just one last chance. We'll give it one more try. And he goes, boy, so man, this study is going to teach my wife some things. And he goes, I think God had more things for me than it did for her. And he goes, and it saved us. And he said, and it didn't take us long. And he looked at her and he goes, what if I'd given up on her? He goes, I just love her so much. What if I'd given up? And then they start sharing their story, and they had a story of infertility and an adoption that stopped at the very last minute. They had gone through some really, really hard times. Of course they were struggling. But when the church came around them and surrounded them with other couples and with encouragement, it just mattered to them. And there's that piece of it, and there's also the piece of people saying, do events really help? Do they really matter? Are they really... should we do that? Because we've got a million things going on. This is another stat that they come out with. And I saw this and I thought, I don't know. This feels weird to me, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. And there's Matt Engel says it's right. And I trust my boy, Matt. They did on one of the events that we did, they did a pre-assessment of people. They ranked their marriage from 1 to 10. And then they did a post-assessment where they ranked their marriage between 1 and 10. And here's what happened. The after event ranking, couples on average ranked their marriage 4 points higher when they came through the door. Now let's think about this for a second. Think about the math on that. Somebody comes in at a 6, that's a D, walks out a 10, that's an A+. Somebody started out a 2, right? Somebody started out a 2 and they walk out a 6. And you go, does it work that way? And I think what this is saying, I so push back on it because I don't see discipleship working like that. I feel like it's longer. I feel like marriage is it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. But at the same time, it spoke to me. People just want hope. And when we give them hope, statistically, and not just anecdotally now, statistically, we are seeing that it matters. So that's why these events are such a big deal. And the last stat I'll give you, and then we'll do some Q&A, is 58%, this is a bad stat, but I'm going to move to hope really quickly, I promise. 58% of millennials raised in the church have dropped out. 58% of millennials who were raised in the church have dropped out. But here's the great news. When millennials were asked to rank their top 5 priorities, number 1 was to be a great parent, and number 2 was to have a great marriage. You think about that. We've acted like millennials don't care about marriage, they don't care about families, and they do. And think how exciting that is for the church, because we say because marriage and parenting matters to millennials, the church can matter to millennials. Because people want this, and even if they've got hesitancies toward church and they don't want to go, they said, if you're known as the place that's going to help me be a better parent and have a better marriage, I'm in. And I believe people are doing church better than ever. People just don't know it. So if we can get them in the door by pouring into their marriage on a Saturday night or a Thursday night or with a small group, and we're letting them know through Facebook ads or however that works, man, it's a great bridge into our church. And that's not just true for millennials, it's true for everybody. Because we say it a lot, if your marriage is not working, nothing's working. The positive of that is when your marriage is better, everything's better. So we want to pour into marriages in that way. And you're going, okay, where do we get data, and how do we even do this? We're going to give you a lot of helpful links that maybe you didn't know about, maybe you did. There's Google Trends, there's some government census data, there's other ways. So we're going to put that'll be in your notes. The other thing I would encourage you to continue to do that internal data of, how many people are giving, how many people are serving, how much in attendance. We got to keep counting those things, but that's technical stuff. It's great, but we need to know what's making people behave the way they're behaving. Where are they going? Because here's the thing. Once we really have that data and we go back to our senior pastor and we say, look, we know that we see marriage ministry as something extra, and we'll get to it when we have time, but these are what the numbers are saying. And we're pouring all this money into children's buildings and children's resources and staff, and that's great. But we're not ministering to them, and they're going to graduate from their faith if their parents don't stay together. And again, marriage is not a stat, it's a story. But we see the implications. And so this puts marriage into that important and urgent category. So there is that. In just a minute, we'll do some Q&A. Then after that, I've asked Robert, this is Robert. Robert has put together a cool video to show you our new strategy pack that we're very excited. We just launched. It's called Game Changers. It's really fun. We got some new things there. You're going to love that. Our new website, the new store, and for the first time in a really long time, we are providing 2 different tiers. So if some of you churches are going, wow, you see the annual partnership with us and you see all these resources, you're like, whoa, I'm not quite ready for that. We said, let's create an entry-level place where any church can get in and start to do that. So we're really excited about all those fun things. And now let's do a little Q&A. Like, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking? What are you excited about? Because I know when we start talking about having people's data and all that stuff, should the church be involved in knowing those things? So I know there's some pushbacks there. What's some questions you may have? Any questions? Questions. Robert, do you have any question?
I've heard this all before.
Robert goes, I've heard this all before. What questions? Come on, this is time we can hang out. You always have questions. How can you guys not have questions? Robert, we've never not have questions.
Do we have any questions at the breakout that were good questions? How to practically, what's a good first step to practically apply data in your church?
Yeah, so Robert, we're thinking about some questions that we have for Orange. Okay, explain the 2-tier deal. Okay, we're going to have that in an official video right after this. But what we decided to do was tier 1 is for starter. And so in tier 1, there's going to be 1 event that you can pull off. There's going to be a small group study. There's going to be 2 date nights that you give couples to do on their own, and Married People Monthly, which is a monthly email that we send to you, and you can send it out to couples. For the second tier, it's if you've been around married people a while, it's what we've always done. So you get 4 large events, a small group study, 4 date nights instead of 2, and 12 months of married people monthly instead of 6. So that's kind of, and we've got some great things in both, where it's new social media tiles and promotion. One of the things you guys have told us you wanted that was different from last time's strategy package, you wanted way more promotional stuff. So we've got all the promotional stuff in the world, and it's really fun. You got to check out the Game Changers. We'll send you some of that. Okay. What are some strategies for bringing other church leaders on board? What are some strategies for bringing other church leaders on board? So I'm assuming that you're meaning, what are strategies for bringing? I don't know, Timothy. If could you explain, when you say by church leaders, do you mean how do you get more people to volunteer to help you, or have more church leaders in the area on board? So if you can clarify that, and while you're doing that, I will talk to Kristen for a minute. I joined the conversation late. You're talking about how clear events can help marriages, right? Actually, Kristen, we're talking about our new strategy pack. Last year's strategy pack was clear. This year's strategy pack is called Game Changers, and we have 2 tiers, a smaller starter tier and then a larger tier. And again,
the principles you were talking about before apply to both strategies.
Yes, all the principles that we talked about at the first, regardless of what strategy pack it is, it's the same. But it's kind of that thing that's underlying everything that we're doing. All right, then we have Paul says, I had a chance to interact with Matt a little, and he assured me that there are strict protective measures to keep people's info anonymous. Yes, I'm glad. Yes, I'm very, very excited you brought that up, Paul. It's like with Google Trends and things like that, you're never going to see a specific person's data. You're going to see collective data. So I'm glad, Paul, thanks for bringing that up. Kathy says, I have a question about date nights. How do different churches communicate the idea to their couples? We're learning how to generate enthusiasm as well as conveying specific details. I think date nights are the easiest things for us to explain and get people excited about, because it's the thing they understand. It's what a lot of them did to get married. They dated and hanging out. And so we get to come out and say, hey, a lot of you haven't had a date in a really long time. We're going to help you do that. So we've created a date night kit, date night packet. You're going to get it on the way out. Or you say, hey, this Friday, we're going to keep your kids and you're going to pick up a date night pack and you're going to go out just the 2 of them. I mean, I'll never forget when I told our church that we were going to do an experiment with date nights. I mean, I could hear the rumble through the crowd of like, oh, that's great. And so it's a pretty easy sell. Hey, there's Kim. Is there still one? Let me see. Let me start.
Tim right quick.
Oh, Tim
responded.
All right. Okay, cool. Okay, Kim, I'm going to come to you. Timothy, I'm going back to you. I mean, bringing other leaders and staff in the church on board. That is a great question. So Tim's question is, how do we get other leaders in the church to feel as passionate about this as we do? One of the things you'll find for free online is a marriage ministry starter. What are we calling it? Marriage ministry. We call it something great. Crash course.
Crash course, yeah.
Yes, it is. There's marriage ministry crash course, but and even the married people book, How Your Church Can Build Marriages Last. We talk about how to talk to the senior pastor. I think one of the reasons I brought up all these stats and different things today is we need to put a little bit of emergency in what we're doing. And when you do these things like Google Trends and different things, and it says, hey, 24% of the people in our area are headed toward divorce with razor sharp precision. These are accurate. We get to get them on board. The other thing I think with senior pastors is we need to tell them that we're passionate about this and we have a plan about this. And the only thing we need from them is their support. And we need them to cheerlead it. Not, hey, we want to put one more thing on your plate to say, we know you care about it, but we know you're busy and we've got a plan. I just need you from up front to say, hey, everybody do these date nights. Hey, we're having this great event, to have that support behind them. And the other thing I will say, what will gravitate leaders towards you is creating something excellent that's got some buzz to it. So once you get that first event off the ground and it goes well, you've timed it right, or you've sent people on the date nights and there's good buzz, it's way easier to find leaders at that point. All right, so now we're going to, all right, we're at Kim. Let's see.
Is there one 5-week
right.
small group
Okay,
session?
is there one, Kim says, is there one 5-week small group session or more small group studies to use throughout the year? We get this question a lot. Is there just the one study? Or are we going to add more studies to that? One of the reasons the answer to that question is there's one 6-week study this year. We're very excited with that. It's Shanti Feldhahn, and we partnered with her to create this thing called the 30-Day Kindness Challenge. And you guys are going to love it. I'm so stinking excited about it. You're going to love that. But the reason we don't continually add more studies is we feel like if someone is going to have an ongoing marriage strategy at their church, like if they're going to do it year after year, just in my own experience and then working with church leaders, if you have more than one marriage study throughout the course of the year, it can become too much. So if you're saying, hey, we want to give less content more often, so that's why we've kind of stuck with that over the years. Not saying that that's the only way to do it, but it's been kind of our model. And to say, hey, do studies on other things that are going to impact marriage. Maybe there's a financial study, or there's, the pastor's going through a series. So we think all of those. So that's kind of the thought there, Kim. And then Timothy said, Ben said, explain more about how that money and digital advertising is used. Are you talking about giving that to Facebook to push your posts? We don't advertise at all, so I know nothing about that. Haha. Well, let me tell you, I'm brand new to knowing about it as well. But what they are spent a lot of the money is on Facebook ads. And so with Facebook ads, they will ask you your audience, and you can get really, really granular about that. They'll say, do you want to hit females, and what age are they? What are interests? There's different. It gets really, really specific about that. Any thoughts on that, Robert?
I think that's a resource we could probably create, and we can find some links for them.
Yeah, well, you're going to have some links where you'll see that, but it gives you kind of like what messaging do you want to put out there about that. It's our church cares about your marriage, or our church wants to empower your marriage, and this is one of the chances where you get to make things look masculine. Are attracted to both men and women. This is a chance we get, hey, making marriage fun again. I mean, all those kind of fun messages. Date night, people love. I mean, we've been doing a thing called Date Night Comedy Tour, and we do a thing called Your Best Night Out, Love, Laugh, Chill. And the date night language is really helping pull couples in. So hopefully that's helpful. All right, here's a link to Ben. I have a follow-up question. Where should I go to learn how to advertise digitally, given that I know nothing? We're going to send you some links on that that'll hopefully help you there, Ben. Kristen says, got it. We've been a bit behind and just started clear stuff, so I'll get to New Year's stuff next year. We launched a year ago and just started our second year. We had 100 people at our event Friday night. Way to go. See, that's so stinking great. We have catered dinner, and it's been great. We're getting awesome feedback about your product. We're having difficulty getting people to volunteer to host small marriage groups. All right. Any advice on how to convince them? People are nervous about the intimacy of talking about marriage. My husband and I hosted 4 already in our home, but we can't get others to launch groups. That's a great question. I think one of the things you have to, Kristen, when you're talking about groups, I know it is vulnerable. What I would say is you have to communicate up front. Hey, let me tell you and just acknowledge that pushback. Say, hey, we know a lot of you don't want to get in groups. Like, hey, I don't want to share my marriage in front of strangers. I don't want to share my marriage in front of anyone. Well, we promise the way this is guided, it's so much fun. It's very experiential, and no one's going to be pushed to share anything if they don't want to. We've gotten great response from this. And then I would have a couple maybe come up and talk about it, maybe have the guy especially go, hey, this thing is great. So it's so great that you know their fears. Again, it's about knowing your city and knowing your church. Sounds like you do. Just address those fears and then put those aside, if that makes sense. 6-week study and challenge. Awesome. Paul says, we were gifted the strategy pack in May as part of the initiative you're talking about. We just didn't get the clear content until the past February, though. I downloaded all the content for it, so we're set for the rest of the year, but I need to renew that Married People monthly subscription. Now I'm looking to purchase Game Changers. Is there a way to purchase it without the cost of MP monthly? It's all MP monthly. It's either part of the strategy pack or by itself, the way it's set up right now. Any thoughts on that?
We can put them in touch with Matt.
Yeah,
and then we'll work it up.
Yeah, you know what we can do? Yeah, well, let's do that. Paul, let's do this. We're going to put you in contact with Matt Ivy, who is our orange specialist, and we'll see what we can figure out on that. Cool. And Matt says, can you recommend a resource for couples in crisis? Something like a marriage first aid kit. Ooh, I like that. We need that. Couples in crisis. We have a thing on our site called 5 Days to a New Marriage. Can I tell you, I hate the title. I love the content. And it was created with the content of marriage intensives. And so it takes people through the and I think it's a 10-week study, maybe. I think it's a 10-week study. So 5 days to a new marriage with a 10-week study. I don't know what that's about, but the content is fantastic, and it is designed for couples who are in crisis. So hopefully that is helpful. You guys are doing so good with questions. Well, any other questions?
It's 1:45 now, so.
Yep. All right, you guys. Well, we are so honored and thankful that you guys are here. Just as a reminder, Robert's immediately after we say goodbye. Here's another question, and then we'll do that again. The 5 days to a married, could it be used 5 days to a married in a larger group format? You know what? I think a lot of people are using our small group stuff. Like they'll have, because they can't find a lot of leaders, which I think was one of the questions earlier. They'll have like a master teacher or host that pushes the video, and you have people sitting at tables. So we see churches do that a lot with different small groups. So I think that would work that way too. Good. Paul's listed another, helpourmarriage.org. Do you receive everything in the strategy pack? Yes. I mean, the thing with the strategy pack is think of it, as your iPhone. Like you use parts of it and some of it you don't, but they give you every stinking thing in the world. That's kind of our motto, is we don't want to overwhelm you, but we want you to have everything you need to make this really, really simple. So you find all the large group stuff, the small group stuff, the date nights, everything's in the strategy pack. So yeah, it's all there. And then Matt says, I loved your wife in the Irresistible Skits at North Point. That's awesome. And that was 15 years ago. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Very fun. Oh, it might have been longer than 15. All right, you guys. We'll stick around even after we go down on the webinar here. We'll still answer questions. But again, a reminder, Robert's about to post a video of himself talking about, it's going to walk you through the new website. It's going to walk you through the strategy pack. It's going to walk you through the new store. So if you have any questions, we'll continue to answer those after the webinar. As long as they keep coming in, we'll do that. Again, you'll see the video, and Matt will be here. We're here for you, man. We love you guys, and just have been so amazed at what God is doing through you, and then we're getting to be a small part of that. Has been one of the joys of our lives. So thank you, thank you, thank you. What you do matters. And on days you feel like you're working in isolation, just hop on the Married People Facebook page at Leaders and just go, you're not. Other people care, and it's growing, and it matters, and there's 1,700 leaders around the country that are on that page to go, you know what, you're not alone. It matters. It matters for kids. It matters for couples, and it matters for the kingdom. So thank you for hanging out with us today, and we'll see you at our next webinar that's going to happen when
3 more months.
3 more months, and we'll let you know. Love you guys.